Welcome! Each week I go through reports from around the world of interesting weather events and natural disasters, and this video is a summary of the ones that I've found in the week from the 10th to the 16th of August 2019. I hope you'll enjoy. On the 10th of August, the UN came out with a new report suggesting that we need to change our eating habits because currently they're hurting the environment, but because we're eating too much meat and not enough vegetables. This is harming the environment in a number of different ways. It's also ultimately unsustainable as the Earth's population grows. And this also leads to health issues such as cancer and heart disease. So by eating a few more fruits and vegetables and cutting back a bit on the meat, we're not only helping the planet, we're also helping ourselves. Apparently the Olympics are going to be hosted by Japan next year. They are planning to hold some of the softball and baseball matches in FUKUSHIMA, where the nuclear accident occurred. Typhoon LEKIMA hit China on the 10th of August. It had winds of 130 miles an hour, that's 190 kilometers per hour. There were 33 dead and many missing after a landslide. Some buildings collapsed and over 1 million people had to be evacuated. India seems to be being particularly hard hit by this year's monsoon. This week it was hit with flash floods in the south. Myanmar suffered from mudslides and 244 people are dead so far, with many missing. Europe rarely sees tornadoes, but this week there were several that hit the continent. They touched down in Luxembourg and the Netherlands. Over 100 homes were damaged and 24 people were hospitalized. There was a huge power outage in the UK, millions lost power. Passenger trains were stranded. The cause is unknown, but it seems to be something to do with two generators failing simultaneously, but it was not thought to be a cyber attack of any sort. Talking of weird weather, a lightning strike was recorded near to the North Pole. It was seen within 300 miles of the pole itself, and this is the furthest north that a strike of this type has been seen in living memory. Now we are having wildfires on the Canary Islands. High winds are spreading the fires quickly. We've had over 5 square miles burned to date, and over 1,000 people have had to have been evacuated. The extreme winter weather in Australia continues. A rare snowstorm hit New South Wales on the 13th of August, providing this marvellous opportunity to take pictures of kangaroos leaping through the snow. It's been named the worst winter storm for many years, and even an Australian rules football match in Canberra had to be played in the snow for the first time. Now that game is crazy to start with. It must have been really interesting to see it played in snow. While New South Wales shivers, the Siberian wastes are baking, literally. An area has burned that's larger than the whole European Union, and it is spewing soot and carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which is not going to help our situation as far as global warming is concerned. Did you notice a lot of meteors around earlier this month? Well, it was the Perseids. They're generally active from the 17th of July to the 24th of August. They peak round about the 12th to the 14th of August. Unfortunately, this year's display was spoiled by the full moon, but the Perseids are famous for some bright meteors, so you probably would have seen those. This week we learned that there is lead in the drinking water in New Jersey. Seems to be a repeat of the Flint, Michigan problem. The EPA has said it cannot guarantee that the water is safe. The authorities have been handing out to 38,000 lead filters, but those may not be effective. And so now they're beginning to supply bottled water. We now have wildfires in Greece that are burning out of control. They're mainly on a small island off the Greek coast called Evia in a nature reserve. The situation has been fueled by high winds and hot weather. There have been 56 different fires that have broken out in a 24-hour period. 4 villages and a monastery have had to be evacuated, and 1 fire was injured with burns and had to be taken to hospital. There's a shortage of cauliflowers in the UK. The heavy rains followed by extreme heat waves have destroyed most of the cauliflower crop. Cabbages, broccoli and Brussels sprouts are affected too. Prices have soared and there's even rationing in some of the stores. The question is, will lettuce be next? We've had a lot of stories about Florida in the last few weeks, and they continue this week with heavy rains. The Orlando area, for example, has received up to 4 inches of rain in one day. That forced water rescues of some stranded motorists, and a waterspout, which is basically a tornado over water, was seen off of Palm Beach. I think the most amazing story this week is of this Russian plane that landed in a cornfield. It was forced down just after it took off from Moscow airport, after both engines failed when they were hit with birds. The pilot forced an emergency landing in this cornfield, and amazingly only one passenger of 288 people on board was injured. The aftershocks from the large earthquakes in Southern California are continuing. For example, yesterday there was a series of magnitude 3 quakes in the region. The China Lake Naval Base alone could cost more than $5 billion to repair and put back into service. Each week I go through all these weather events, illustrating some cold temperature places, some places that have had extreme heat. And it's hard to tell with this mixture of items what the overall balance is between increasing temperatures and decreasing temperatures. And so the easiest way to look at that is to look at the number of new high temperature records that were set and comparing to the number of low temperature records that were set. If you have more highs, you've got a warming planet. If you've got more lows, it's a cooling planet. So this is what I've done here. This is the daily records from a number of stations around the globe. And in this last week, we've set 608 new high temperature records compared with 272 low temperature records. That's a ratio of 2 to 1 favouring warming. Monthly records are much more hard to set, so we've only set 34 new high temperature records and 1 new low temperature record in the last month. That's a ratio, of course, 34 to 1. All-time records are even more hard to set. We've had 9 new all-time high temperature records and no new all-time low temperature records. That, of course, is a ratio of infinity to 1. Well, that's all the weather news for this week. If you enjoyed this, please pass this on to your friends and family. So until next time, stay safe. Bye for now.